Hi everyone, welcome to this video lesson on the method. Today we're going to learn about an analytical way of reading that is called the method. There are 5 steps involved and it's super useful for you to move forward reading different kinds of patterns. So you're going to learn how to look for different kind of patterns and then identify them and use those in your papers. So first of all, it's called the method. It's about identifying patterns, and this is a way of reading analytically. There are 5 different parts here. I do not need to turn that red, so let me just, let's make it blue. So the first one is to identify exact repetitions. And if you aren't already doing so, you should absolutely take notes. So identifying things that repeat that are exactly the same. For example, maybe lines on a page that are exactly the same. When you're in a classroom, you see all the desks are exactly the same. What words are repeated that are exactly the same. If you were reading a novel, you might look for repeated sentences in a poem. For example, the I have a dream speech. I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a dream. So that is repeated over and over again, but it's exactly the same wording. The second one is look for things that are related. These are also known as strands. So it's not the exact thing repeated over and over again, but they are related. For example, professor, moment here. For example, professor, students, desk. So you wouldn't necessarily think of them as a pattern, but they are a related strand. They're 3 completely different things. They're not exactly the same, but they're related somehow, right? The professor does the teaching, the student does the learning, and then students sit at desks. Maybe the professor also sits at a desk. So you see there's a strand there. Another kind of strand, let's say, would be peanut butter, jelly, and bread. So these are not the same thing. They're 3 separate things. And yet when you think of them together, they form some kind of meaning, right? So in the case of, let's say, Ms. Marvel, the comic Ms. Marvel, a strand there might be sandwiches, Kamala Khan, and religion. So let me write that down. In Ms. Marvel, for example, a strand would be, we'll put sandwiches, right, as they refer to in the comic Ms. Marvel. The comma should be inside the quotes, but I'm not going to bother. And religion. Because there's a relationship between these bacon sandwiches, Ms. Marvel, I really should say Kamala Khan in that instance, and her religion. So there's meaning there, so we would want to take note of that. Okay, so that's the second one. Now the third one is identify what are called binaries. Now for folks who don't know, a binary is also an opposite. So binaries, some easy ones would be black versus white, light versus dark, that kind of thing. Maybe left versus right. Those of you who are into computers might recognize the 0-1 binary, right? So we're not talking about binaries as in 2, we're talking about opposites and oppositions. So we want to identify that. So we might, in the example of Ms. Marvel, we might say that there are certain characters who are opposite. That would be a good example. The fourth one is we want to identify what are called anomalies. Okay, so what the heck is an anomaly? Well, an anomaly, I don't know why that turned black. Well, that's anomalous. Everything else was blue, now that's black. So anomalous is something that stands out as different. Okay, there's a ghost typing now, but it's appropriate. Something that's weird, something that's odd, something that doesn't belong. So when we're looking at a film, for example, there might be a scene that is completely in black and white, but then all of a sudden there's a figure dressed in red that wanders through the frame. That's weird. That doesn't belong there. That stands out. Or maybe there's a romantic scene, and then all of a sudden you hear a crash in the background. Well, that shakes you up, right? You notice it as different. So we're looking for anomalies. The fifth one, it's a step that you want to take. It's a question that you want to ask. And the question that you want to ask is, make sure that's blue. The question you want to ask is, so what? Why does it matter? So you go through all of this looking for repetitions, you go for looking at strands, you're identifying binaries, you're identifying the anomalies, which by the way is the most fun step. It's really fun to write about weird stuff, so keep that in mind. But then you want to ask the question, who cares? Why does it matter? Why does it matter that all of a sudden there's a character dressed in red when the whole rest of the thing was black and white? The answer to that question gives you potential material to discuss in a paper or in a conversation. So you want to attempt to answer that question. Now, one of the things I want you to know is that we do steps 1 through 4 automatically, because we have amazing brains. So we are always doing this when we're evaluating something. But I want you to be aware of these as actual steps for you to take when you're performing analysis on a text. And remember, in this case, a text, we use the word text, can mean any kind of object that we're using for analysis. So not objecto, but object. So that can mean a book, it can mean a film, it can mean a TV show, it could be a comic, it could be a I don't know, something else that you would analyze. So when we say text, it doesn't necessarily have to be a book. I have some other text. It can be a poem, right? It can be a short story. It can come in any of these forms, but we like to use the word text. Another word that we like to use would be is artifact. They mean the exact same thing. It just means the object of study. So I want you to get into the habit, know these the 5 steps of the method. So when we talk about the method, we discuss performing the method, or in an assignment, if I tell you to perform the method, then you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Before we go, I have one small correction that is killing me. We have an amazing brain because each of us has just one brain, and then the other one that's probably perhaps killing you this entire time. It's exact repetitions. Not exactly. So have fun with performing the method, and I will speak to you again soon.